Welcome. Okay.
Leave it in.
Welcome back to this.
It's just the same as you did here just a second ago.
I don't know what's wrong. Welcome back to This Week in Film. It's the weekly podcast where we get together and talk about the movies we've seen over the past 7 days. I'm Nick Panunto, joined as always by Midwest Matt Lauer. Matt, how's it going?
It's going great, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing great. I've seen 2 movies this week.
Indeed. I've seen 1.
Oh, all right. The movies that I've seen this week are I watched The Martian.
Nice.
And Replicas, which is that Keanu Reeves movie that no one saw.
Huh.
Yep.
Do you mean The Replacements?
No, that movie was good.
Did that have Diane Lane in it?
No. It had some other lady.
Attractive female. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a digression anyway. I also saw a Keanu Reeves movie. I saw John Wick Chapter 2.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
In preparation and hopes for seeing John Wick Chapter 3.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see that too, but it's probably not going to happen while it's in theaters.
Apparently the box office on these movies just keeps climbing. But anyway, yeah. We'll get there.
The third one, they say the third one is the best one.
And we're there.
So, I don't know. We'll see. Well, I guess I'll start.
Sure.
With should I talk about The Martian or Replica? I'll save Replicas for
I was going to say, I think The Martian's come up on here before, so why don't you do that one first?
Yeah, so I watched The Martian. I was inspired to watch it after last week's, what do you call it? What was that? Arctic?
Apollo 11?
That movie Arctic.
Oh, you were trying to watch The Martian by smushing those 2 other movies together.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie's great. I love this movie. I've read the book. I love the book. I read the book for this in a day and a half.
Wow.
And yeah, it was great. Well, I was on a plane for like 4 hours and read like 3/4 of it on the plane. And then when I was flying back, I finished it. But it's a great book. It's a great movie. Directed by Ridley Scott. It stars Matt Damon, Jessica Chastain, Jeff Daniels, and a bunch of other people. This is basically, if you haven't seen The Martian, it's the story of Matt Damon, who gets stuck on Mars. He gets stranded on Mars after his team thinks, his team of astronauts think he's dead and they have to leave in the middle of a storm. And the next morning, he's still alive and they've already left the planet. So it's basically the story of Matt Damon trying to survive on this inhospitable world. And it's great. It's really good. It's a great movie.
It is really good. I agree with you on all of those fronts. And I think one of the things that's the most enjoyable about it is that the character's got such a different attitude than most people in like survival dramas or really any sort of like drama. He's just like he does get genuinely frustrated at points in time. But he just has this like, and now I've got to work with that kind of attitude, and it just keeps him going, and it makes the movie a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's great. I think Matt Damon was perfectly cast as this character, and he does such a good job that it's. I don't think he was up for any kind of awards for it, and that's disappointing because he was terrific. I don't know if I mentioned it, but the movie's directed by Ridley Scott. And it's one of the better movies Ridley Scott has directed in recent years.
Yeah,
which is which is good. Like you said, like Matt Damon has such like a positive attitude, and even when things go to hell on him, he has those moments where he's like, I don't want to say when he's negative, but when things go bad, he like reacts. Like there's this one moment where something terrible happens and he has to like go hide in the rover that he has there.
Yeah.
And he just like, he gets ready to contact NASA about it. And then he like hesitates, and then he just starts punching the ceiling like, God damn it. And, it's just like a powerful moment. Like the guy's so positive, and then this terrible thing happens, and then he reacts like that. You're like, oh man, he must be really upset. And then like 2 scenes later, he's back to his normal, what do you call it? Where you're joking around a lot.
Like attitude, demeanor.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And he, like the movie is shot basically from the point of view of, for the most part, of these GoPros that NASA has set up all over the equipment that they have. And he just basically talks to the camera the whole time because they're supposed to be journals, and he's got no one else to talk to. So he just kind of talks to the camera, documenting what he's been doing, because if he dies, at least there's a record of it. And if he survives, then there's still a record of it. And
there's more evidence of things that he says once he's gotten back.
Yeah. There's one great moment where late in the movie where he's talking about how everywhere he goes on this planet, he's the first man to do it. Like he's the first man to climb this hill. He's the first man to cross this ravine. And it's great. It's just so good. It's so entertaining. And much like Apollo 13, this movie is it really shows the triumph of the human spirit. How like when groups of people come together with a singular goal, how they can accomplish the seemingly impossible. And also like Apollo 13, there's no real bad guy in this movie. It's really just fate working against Matt Damon and many of the other characters. Like at one point they go to send Matt Damon this rocket filled with supplies to like last him until another Mars mission can make it out there to rescue him. And that rocket explodes. And it explodes on takeoff because they were rushing it so hard that they didn't go through all the safety checks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, of course it blew up, like it's how disappointing is that? But like it didn't blow up because people were cutting corners to save money or anything. They were cutting corners to save this guy's life. If they didn't do that, Matt Damon was going to run out of food before they could ever get to him. And it's just so good. Like that, there's nobody like Jeff Daniels, I guess you could say, is the main antagonist, but like all the decisions he makes these decisions that are difficult, but he makes them for the sake of NASA, where like they decide to not tell the crew of the astronauts that left Matt Damon behind. They decide not to tell them that Matt Damon's alive because space travel is dangerous and they have another 9 months to their journey that they need to concentrate on. Yeah,
he makes decisions based on reason and logic and concern for the people versus like, Mr. Burns sort of like finger tapping, excellent, kind of like, evil doing stuff.
Yeah. And it's refreshing to have a movie like that where like the antagonist of the movie is just fate and the protagonists are all working against it, which is It's not done very often, and it's often not done this well.
There's a high school teacher in my head going, "It's man versus nature." That's the theme.
Is it an English teacher?
Yes.
I can't remember her name.
Oh, no, I was thinking Mr. Grace, although you're thinking of Miss Canzano, I think.
That doesn't sound... I never had Miss Canzano.
You didn't?
I don't
think so. Yes, you did. You were in my class.
Who did we have senior year?
Miss Canzano. She's the best teacher I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, I don't remember her name.
Well, you know it now. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
That means you can remember it, but that's it.
Yeah, that was that class was great.
Yeah, shout out to Miss Canzano.
I learned so much about the play. Like we did like a deep dive on was it Macbeth that we discussed? And I was totally into it, and I still failed that test.
Yeah, she wasn't an easy teacher, but she didn't like insult anybody for doing badly in her class either.
No.
Yeah, and there. Well, we'll talk more offline, but yeah, no, awesome teacher, awesome class. Wish I could do it again. I would totally go back and relive. Well, I'd relive senior year of high school anyway. That's probably the best year ever. But yeah, no, everything about that class was great. Even when I didn't like the books or the stories, like when we did Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, I really did not enjoy Frankenstein. But still a great class talking about it. And,
yeah.
Man.
The only reason that I was able to pass that class is because we worked together on the vocabulary
quizzes.
Yeah, she had like a vocabulary quiz every week, and that was the only reason I was able to pass that class, was because otherwise it would not have worked out for me.
I don't know. I think a lot of people somehow managed to get a D at the end of the year, even if they didn't have a D throughout the year.
Oh yeah, just seniors.
I think that's where her kindness was. She's like, yeah, you didn't do well enough, but it's a tough class, and I'm a nice person.
I don't want to see you next year.
I don't know if you remember, but she had a huge crush on Antonio Banderas. She would refer to it very often, and it was always funny, and it wasn't like creepy or anything. Oh man, miss that teacher. All right, so The Martian. Hey, good job telling us all about The Martian without spoiling the part with the aliens too, by the way.
You're welcome.
Hey, wait. Go ahead.
You know what's funny is that when they were first making that movie, like I read an article about that Ridley Scott was making this movie called The Martian, and I hadn't heard of the book and I hadn't read it, of course. And all I could think was, oh, Ridley Scott's making another alien movie on a different planet, and this time Matt Damon is involved. And then I learned more about the movie, and I went, oh, The Martian refers to Matt Damon because he lives there now.
Right. What a surprise.
Yeah. But like for a good 2 or 3 months, I was like looking forward to more information about Ridley Scott's alien movie that takes place on Mars.
Yeah, it's just a xenomorph.
Yeah.
Hanging out, trying to plant some potatoes.
Yeah. The other thing about The Martian that's great is that you really believe that Matt Damon is on Mars.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure it was shot in Arizona or something where it just looks like Mars anyway, but there's not a moment when you're with Matt Damon that you question, hey, where is this?
Yeah, you never feel like you're on a set or something.
Yeah, like it feels like he's on a different world, which is a credit to the filmmakers to really immerse you in the moment.
Yeah, and to whatever degree it's like CGI, it's not easy to see.
Yeah. Like there's this one moment where he finds this old Martian probe, and he's like trying to dig it up, but the sand that's all around it is that it's like that sand that it looks like sand that has been there for a long time, where there's like those wind ripples in it, and it just looks like, hey, this is sand that hasn't been disturbed in such a long time. And it's just like one of those little details that really sells the experience.
I don't remember that part.
And that's really all I got to say about The Martian. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, watch it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful movie. It's great. So Matt, you watched John Wick.
Hold on. Loose end corner. Last week when you talked about the Arctic or Arctic, whichever one it is, you mentioned at some point that there was a Chekhov's polar bear, and you never finished that thought. I feel like it was heading towards the polar bear never actually comes back.
Oh no, that polar bear comes back.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Oh man, I saw, speaking of polar bears, I saw a clip on Instagram of a young lady snowboarding with like a selfie stick attached to her or something. So like this, I think it was like Rihanna music or something was playing. So you can sort of hear what she's listening to, and she's snowboarding around, not realizing that behind her, there's a polar bear chasing her.
What?
And she outruns a polar bear because she's snowboarding down a mountain. Yeah, it's crazy. And terrifying. Yeah. So anyway, if you can find that clip, if I find it, I'll send it to you. But listeners, check that out.
If you find it, I'll post it on the website with this episode.
All right, cool.
And if you're unaware, last week we talked briefly about dump cakes, and on the website, if you go to like thisweekinfilm.com and go to last week's episode, there's a video shortcut, like an embed of the dump cakes video, so you can check that out. You can check that out there.
I thought you were going to say you put up the dump cakes thing on the website and it's got more responses than anything.
It probably does.
Okay, so John Wick 2. Let's see. There's, the John Wick movies, if you haven't seen any, they're very simple. And they take place in what has to be sort of an alternate universe of things. I'm going to just start out with, I enjoyed this movie. It didn't feel quite so nonstop as the first one did. Or, the first one wasn't action the entire time, but it didn't feel like for me that there was any downtime. This one felt like there was a little bit of downtime, but at the same time, it also felt like people had written a story, or maybe like written a movie, written the script, and then someone came along and went, all right, take out anything that's not action and isn't absolutely necessary to know what's going on or to understand what's happening. And then boom, you have this movie. Because it's like that. There's the universe that everything takes place in, but nothing's explained more than it needs to be. In some cases, it feels like it's not explained at all, but you're like, okay, I can work with that. Whatever's happening right now, I don't really need the context of it to roll with it.
Right.
And so John Wick in this movie, so in the first movie, his wife dies. She leaves him a dog. His dog gets killed, and he's on revenge to kill everyone who had anything to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, he's sort of a retired hitman. So in this movie, he's got to do, for reasons, a hit that he didn't really want to do, but someone basically he owed someone a favor, more or less. And they were like, hey, by the way, I know you're retired, but you're coming back because you owe me a favor. And which
I think is the weakest part of the whole story.
Oh yeah. It's just like, hey, folks, we want this movie to get going, so here's a starting point.
Yeah. Like the first movie, his motivation for doing anything is so crystal clear and it makes sense where he's like responding to everything from this place of like grief and anger. And then in this movie, it's, hey, do this thing for me because you owe me a favor.
Yeah, it's not personal.
Like, yeah, it's very impersonal, and it's just kind of like that one girl that I guess the mission or whatever that he kills.
Yeah,
and she's like in that bathtub or something, and
she actually kills herself.
Yeah, but like she does it because he's like, I don't really want to kill you.
No, he gets there and he's like, yeah, I got to do this. He does sort of say that, but that's not why she does it. She does it because she's like, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die on my terms.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And then he shoots her anyway.
Does he?
Yeah, she's bleeding out in the tub and he's like, well, pew. I'm like, why?
I guess so technically he can say he did it.
It doesn't make sense, but I guess, like you said, it's kind of a weak way of trying to get things going. So,
yeah,
I guess the bullet's got to go in her.
I don't know why that was so funny.
I don't either. Yeah, so
I think it's because when you said the bullet's got to go in her, it implied he could just put a bullet in her mouth after she was dead,
he
and
just walks up to
that
her
counts
and pushes it into her.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a less personal beginning, and plus with the first one, like even though throughout the movie and then even in this movie they refer back to it, it's as though people are making a joke about, oh, he's doing this all because someone killed his dog. But you're totally there with him. You're like, yeah, that was not cool, because they killed a dog. And it's a little puppy and whatnot. Not that it would matter too much. If it was a full-grown dog, we'd still be with him. But in this movie, yeah, it's much of a less personal, less engaging motive. And I think more or less it's the actual motive is that, yeah, he has to do this hit, but it's like if he doesn't, people will kill him.
Yeah.
And by the end of the movie, that becomes kind of a moot point anyway. I don't want to spoil stuff, but nothing has changed really at the end of the movie, in terms of like the position he's in. But in between, there's one thing that it doesn't have much to do with the plot, but I'm going to throw it out there just so I can like pass this like, kind of minor note. And that is that this movie starts out with the best city shots I've ever seen ever. Like it's sort of 3-dimensional. It's kind of like the beginning of Law and Order where the camera's moving through the city. So you're getting to see all these lights kind of move at different speeds and it just gives you that 3-dimensional feel. But these are these like crystal clear shots and they're really pretty. And then you have this action scene. Then the plot starts. And then there's a woman in this movie who's kind of, when you've got the big bad, but they always have some sort of sidekick or underling who's like Mr. Joshua from Lethal Weapon. I think his name is Mr. Joshua. Is played by Gary Busey.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that Gary Busey? His name's Mr. Joshua?
I think so. There's a woman in this who's kind of tracking him down. And the first, I guess technically it's the second big action scene, is her and a ton of gun fodder, just like red shirts, going through these tunnels, chasing him. And it's really crappy action. Like I was actually really starting to think, oh man, this movie's gonna suck. I've been sold a lie, because people just walk out basically like, shoot me now, shoot me. It's like playing a video game but having it set to like pre-beginner.
Is this the sequence where like before it he goes around like hiding guns all around the tunnel?
Yes.
Okay.
And that part's kind of cool.
With you, yeah.
The part where he's like pulling these guns out from where he's hidden them, I'm like, that's kind of a fun idea. But this action scene's boring the hell out of me. And some of it is that he's walking towards the camera. So instead of seeing all these cool shots that he's doing, you're just seeing him shooting a gun. Mm-hmm. And then like at the edge of the screen, you might see someone's hand like, oh, I've been shot, like they're falling away. But it just does not work as an action scene. It's really long and it's really boring. But all the action scenes after that are great. There's Common is in this movie, and he's sort of like another not big bad but almost big bad guy, because he was the sort of bodyguard for the woman that he killed at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And his motive makes sense. You get a sense of like the dedication that people have to their whatever kind of quest they've agreed to, and so he's like, yeah, that was my woman. I was supposed to protect her. I'm not going to stop till I kill you. And there's some great action scenes with them and this sort of pause in the middle that I won't get into the details of, but like they sort of end up having a quiet moment in the middle of this action scene and then go back into trying to kill each other. I guess I'm going to spoil something here. So if you want to watch this and you don't want to be surprised, just jump ahead 30 seconds. Well, hang on. I'm going to get this out of the way. So jump ahead 30 seconds. When Common dies, he has this stupid smile that he's doing at the camera. And it doesn't ruin the whole thing, but I was like, that's really dumb. Like, it just looks dumb. Anyway, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've only seen this movie the one time, and I didn't hate it. I thought it was still pretty good.
Yeah.
It's definitely an above average action movie, but it's definitely not as good as the first one.
No.
And we're talking about Common, and I'm trying to remember, don't they have like a fight on a subway? Does that happen?
Yeah, that's where it ends.
Okay.
The whole thing leads up to them on the subway, and then on the subway, it's mostly like hand-to-hand with knives.
Right. Yeah. That was cool. I remember that being pretty cool.
Well, and it starts out at the same time as kind of this movie goes in a direction where John Wick he's got everybody after him. And by the way, this whole city is nothing but hitmen. I don't know who they even can kill.
Yeah.
That's just like a mark. I don't know how anybody's making any money because they're just killing each other.
Yeah, that's when the movie kind of falls apart a little bit more, is when the entire city is revealed to be they're all hitmen. And it's not even an exaggeration. Like, everyone's a hitman.
Yeah. And there are some moments where the city's just completely empty for no reason. The whole fight with Common starts out with the two of them going through these alleyways and down this like set of stairs, and I'm like, oh, they're they are in these back streets, so nobody's there, and then they just roll right out in the open. I'm like, wait, what? There's nobody in this city at all? Everybody went to bed. But then later it's like, oh no, it's full of people. They just all happen to be hitmen.
Yeah.
And there are some things that are clever and fun, kind of like the original, where it kind of breaks some rules and does some new things. And when they're I think it might be actually part of the sewer scene where Keanu Reeves is actually holding someone down with a shotgun as he's reloading it. And that's kind of cool. He's like, stay down, and then puts another shotgun shell into the shotgun and then shoots the guy with it. And hang on, my contact just popped out here.
Oh, God.
Technical difficulties. Sorry, listeners. All right, I'm back.
Listener, for those of you who don't know, when that happens to Matt, he often will take the contact, which are hard contacts, which are something you don't see very often these days, and he'll put it in his mouth to clean it off.
Sometimes you don't have other options. Like when you're in the middle of a football tournament at your college, or when you're recording a podcast and you don't want to put a big old break in the middle and make Nick do a bunch of editing. So anyway, I would say that there's a song in this, because I was watching it through Amazon. I tried watching it through a different medium first, which shall go unnamed, but the soundtrack was off and everything was happening 3 seconds. The sound was happening like 3 seconds after the thing would actually happen. So for the first 7.5 minutes of this movie, I was like, this movie sucks. And then I realized that the action wasn't landing because the sound was all off.
Interesting.
But yeah, so there's so I was watching on Amazon, and if you pause anything on Amazon or hit any buttons, this thing pops up at the bottom that tells you about all the actors that are on the screen at the time. And
really?
And it'll tell you their names, and you can go down and click on it if you want. But it also tells you the song that's playing. And there was a song at one point called John Wick Mode. And I was like, that's awesome. But there was something later where once all these hits get called out on him and the action gets good, there's this sort of cutting back and forth where he's got this stuff going on with Common, but he's running into these other people along the way. Like there's this giant sumo wrestler looking guy and this lady with a violin, and they're all assassins because they're in the city. And I was like, man, this song should be called like Full Wick, like that's how it feels. He's going full Wick now. He's just taking out everybody. What I love about these movies so far is that like it just so knows what it is. It's not trying to pull off anything different. And maybe it's because it was all put together by stuntmen who wrote a movie. But it goes with it. It's like, hey man, this is the kind of movie. It's all about the action. The guy's a pretty simple dude. Keanu Reeves is a great guy for this because he's charismatic without having to do anything unnecessarily complex.
Not a whole lot of lines.
Yeah, and it's very tongue in cheek. Like there's one point where Keanu Reeves is going down an escalator or a stairwell or something. Amidst a bunch of people, a bloody dude carrying a gun, and he's just sort of tucking it under his arm, but not really. But nobody's noticing. It's just like, this, it's very, it's very comic booky in its own way without being like a superhero type thing. And it's a lot of fun, and it does give opportunities to do just unique things without having to make the story super unique. There are just fun little twists like the shotgun thing. And like, there's one scene where he only has one gun. And so as he goes through this building full of people, he's just picking up everybody's pistol. He's like, oh, I ran out of bullets. I'll take the gun off this guy's body. Or he'll take guns out of people's hands and be like, cool, got a new gun. And he's just doing that throughout the whole scene. And that's a lot of fun. I'm with you 100% on it not being as good as the first one. But it was good enough that I do want to see the third one in the theater if I can make it, because I didn't see either of these in the theater.
Yeah, I'd like to see it in the theater too. And it's supposed to be great. Like everyone that I've talked to that has seen it has said that it might be the best one.
I heard something similar. I heard from a friend of mine that the first one still is probably the best as far as story, but the third one is the best as far as like action.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's got better action than either of these. It's going to be a fun time.
What's really crazy is that this series of movies has become so popular because no one went to see the first one in theaters.
Right.
Like everyone just thought it was some terrible Keanu Reeves movie.
It did make money though. It made well above its budget.
Yeah, because the first one's budget isn't that high. Like it's a pretty inexpensive movie. And especially for like the stunt work and the action sequences, like it's pretty crazy how inexpensive it was to produce. So
much of movies' budgets at this point are the actors too, that like if Keanu Reeves isn't demanding a ton and he's the only guy in it who's a big actor. I mean, the biggest actor in that movie other than him is probably Theon Greyjoy.
Willem Dafoe is in it too.
Was he?
Yeah, he's like his friend.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He's probably not super expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. And Keanu Reeves is known for having like the reason he did John Wick is because it's directed by the guy who was the stunt coordinator for the Matrix movies.
Uh-huh.
And Keanu Reeves has a real soft spot for anyone who is involved in the Matrix movies. I think he gave away his paycheck for the second and third Matrix movies to the crew.
What?
Something like that.
That doesn't surprise me, though. He's supposed to be super nice.
Yeah. And so that's cool. And then like he did that first John Wick movie, I want to say as almost a favor to this guy who made him like a superstar. And it didn't do super great. It made its money back. But like I remember I went to watch the first John Wick movie as I went to watch the movie Replicas, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. And I remember texting you like I'm going to watch this John Wick movie. And I'm like making fun of it for like the first 2 minutes, sending you texts. And then all of a sudden I go, this movie is awesome.
Yeah. And I didn't really believe you till you made me watch it.
Yeah. So good for them for cranking out consistently.
Well, yeah,
pretty good movies.
The second one, I heard the other day that the second one did twice as much as the first one. And now the fourth or the third one is making twice as much they expect as the second one.
That's crazy.
So the box office is just getting multiplied. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. So
oh yeah. Speaking of the Matrix, for some reason this movie has Larry Fishburne in it. And
oh yeah.
I don't really have any problem with Lawrence Fishburne. He's a cool guy. He's a good actor. As far as I can tell, he's a cool guy. But like, but him being in this is
nothing to do in this.
Oh my God. And it's very much like, look, Morpheus is here. Like,
yeah.
Just completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
like kept like at one point while I was watching the second one, I was like, is Carrie-Anne Moss going to show up too?
Right. I wish she would. I like her. I want her to be in more things.
Get the whole gang back together. She's in the Daredevil or it's either Daredevil or Jessica Jones TV show on Netflix.
Man.
So you should watch that first season of Jessica Jones. It's amazing. I haven't seen the second one yet.
Hey, what's her superpower?
It's unclear.
Okay.
She's like super strong and can jump high.
Oh.
But she still can get the crap beat out of her.
The only thing I've known about her up till this point where you just said that is that she has an alcohol problem.
She does have an alcohol
That's
problem.
all I've known. And I actually I saw it on some sort of list or something the other day, and I turned to Karina and I was like, hey, do you know what Jessica Jones, like what her power is? I don't think she really even knew who Jessica Jones was, but she's very tired of the superhero thing, and I don't.
Oh, really?
Her. Yeah, I don't blame her at all.
But they're all consistently good.
Are
especially
they?
Especially that Aquaman movie.
Why is that in your? Never mind. Okay. The listeners are like, "What the hell is he talking about?" Anyway, so what's your other movie? Replica.
The other movie that I watched this week is also a Keanu Reeves movie entitled Replicas from 2018. It was directed by Jeffrey Nachmanoff, and it stars Keanu Reeves, Alice Eve, and Thomas Middleditch. And I'm going to say right off the top, this wasn't the worst movie ever. It's got
bold statement.
It's got an IMDb rating of 5.4, which is pretty low. And it's better than 5.4. I'd say it's probably a 6.
Is it better than Aquaman?
Yeah.
So it should have at least a 6.7.
I wouldn't go that high.
Well, that's because I'm just saying that because they gave Aquaman 6.7, but I know you wouldn't.
But like, I would give this movie a solid 6 stars on IMDb. So basically, the plot of this movie is Keanu Reeves is a scientist whose job is, and which is great because Keanu Reeves has to say a bunch of science stuff, and you can tell he's not super comfortable saying any of these lines. And so like his job as a scientist is he works for this company in, I want to say, South America, even though everyone speaks English there. But his job is to take the dead, like let's say a dead soldier, and he has this device that can copy your brain. So he like makes a copy of the brain, and then they have this robot sitting nearby, and they take the brain scan and upload it to the robot, and the person that's dead wakes up inside the robot. And this is where all the problems live, is because the person wakes up and freaks out that he's inside a robot, and then like, I guess, beats himself to death until they pull the plug on him. And so then that's the movie is Keanu, or that's Keanu Reeves is like a super scientist like this. And then, it's the weekend, and he and his family are going to go on some boat trip on Thomas Middleditch's boat. And on the way there, they get into a bad storm, and a tree falls down in front of the car, and it goes through the windshield, and it impales Alice Eve, and she dies like almost instantly. And then Keanu Reeves, in his distress, loses control of the car, and they go down this big hill, and they crash into a lake or a river or something. And basically, all of his three kids, they die too. So everyone's dead except for Keanu Reeves.
Oh, I don't like that. Like, I don't want to watch a movie where Keanu Reeves' wife and kids die in a car accident. Because that happened to him.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't that actually happen to him? Yeah.
Oh, that's no.
And then you get to see Keanu Reeves act. He's got to act really upset because he's got to drag his family out of the car, and he's like, so you get to see him act distraught, and he's crying.
I don't like this.
Yeah, it's pretty uncomfortable, like especially knowing his backstory.
Yeah.
But then he pulls his phone out of his pocket and he calls Thomas Middleditch, and he's able to call his phone by dialing 4 numbers, which was really distracting for me. Like he goes beep, 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 and then puts the phone to his ear. And I'm like, that's not how phones work.
Maybe he just went into his contacts and chose the guy by name and then hit send, or,
I mean, like it shows the screen is like the number, number screen.
So much for that.
And I'm like, at minimum, you're hitting 7 numbers to call somebody. So anyway, so Keanu Reeves decides he's going to do the whole brain swap thing with his family. And Thomas Middleditch is like, dude, your family is dead. We need to call the cops. And Keanu Reeves is like, no, we can't. So they scan the minds and leave the bodies. And then Thomas Middleditch says, hey, so I know how to clone people. That's one of my skills. And so they decide to do that. And Thomas Middleditch is like, but what if something goes horribly wrong? And Keanu Reeves goes, it already has. And then they're like, yeah. And then at this point, somehow all of the bodies get recovered and they're like brought to the workplace. And Keanu Reeves is like, hey, Thomas Middleditch, you need to get rid of all these bodies. And Thomas Middleditch is like, okay. And so like, that's his job. And then after he gets rid of the bodies, he shows back up at Keanu Reeves's house, and he's got these cloning pods. but he only has 3 of them, but they needed 4. So Keanu Reeves has to choose who he's going to clone. So he's got his wife and his 3 kids, and he puts all 4 names into basically a hat, and he's going to pull out one name, and whatever name he pulls out is the one that's not going to be cloned.
Just don't put your wife's name in the bowl.
Yeah. And the name that gets pulled out is the youngest, most adorable child.
Yeah, well.
And so, in addition to, like, his daughter is not going to exist anymore, he has to delete her memory from everyone's memory. Like, because that's a thing he can do, is he can go into your memory and delete things.
Uh-huh.
And so he just deletes this girl from his family's memories. And it's going to take 17 days for the clones to be ready. And it all works.
So cloning his wife, it's not like he gets a baby version of his wife. He gets a full-grown 40-year-old woman clone.
Yeah, while they're in the cloning pods, they advance in age.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then, like, one of the conflicts is that Keanu Reeves can't figure out how to put the mind scan into their bodies without them freaking out like the robot did. And Thomas Middleditch is like, look, dude, they need to come out today, because if you leave them in there for 2 more days, your wife is going to be 80 years old and your kids are going to be 60.
Well,
he's like,
why would they freak out if they're not being put in robots? Wouldn't they just be like, oh, cool, it's my body, just like it was before?
Yeah, that's basically what Keanu Reeves discovers is the reason that people freaked out is because they would wake up and their brain was like, this isn't my body. Where are my lungs? Where are my internal systems?
Why every time I move does it go bzz, 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 bzz?
Yeah, exactly. And it takes Keanu Reeves over 300 robots to figure that out. And so then he's like, he's basically says, if we're putting the minds inside a body, the brain will have lungs. It'll just assume that this is the body. And Thomas Middleditch is like, yeah, that sounds like it's going to work for the plot. Let's do it. So they do it. And then the next morning, his wife wakes up. His kids wake up. Well, most of his kids wake up because he's missing one. And so he goes around the house before everyone wakes up. He goes around the house and, like, tries to get rid of everything that was this girl. Like, he takes her pictures off the wall. I guess she shares a bedroom with the sister, and he's got to, like, take the bunk beds apart and get rid of the bunk beds. And he's got to, like, throw away all her clothes, all her toys. And then before she died, she, like, drew on the table with, like, crayon or something, and she's like really into unicorns.
Uh-huh.
And she, like, draws this unicorn on the table, and there's, like, this long drawn out sequence of Keanu. It's like the last thing, and it's like Keanu Reeves, like, erasing this thing, like, cleaning it up, and he's just crying while he's, like, erasing this thing.
I mean, I get that your kid dying is sad, but, like, 3 out of 4, that's not bad.
Yeah, I think he's doing all right. Odds, like, numbers wise. And so what he doesn't realize is that the daughter, the youngest daughter, like, went around the house writing her name on the inside of closets. So his oldest daughter, like, at dinner one night goes, "Who's Zoe?" And his dad and Keanu Reeves is like, "I'm sorry, who? What are you talking about?" And she goes, "Someone wrote Zoe inside my closet. Why does it say Zoe inside my closet?"
It's like, it's a ghost. Sorry.
Yeah.
Or whoever owned the house before us. Done.
Yeah. And it's at this moment that the movie really goes downhill.
Oh.
It's like they had like, because up until this point, it's kind of an interesting story.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, yeah, I could see like there's like all these ethical questions. There's a lot of emotional investment.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch, like you're on Keanu Reeves' side for most of this. And then it seems like a totally different group of people started writing the movie. and I don't want to spoil it because I want you to watch this.
Okay.
It's only like an hour and 45 minutes, but I'd like to hear what you have to say about it. But it's not a good movie, but it's not terrible.
Does it become like a horror movie?
You think it's going to become a horror movie. There's like the first day that the wife is alive again. Also they don't know that they died. If that wasn't clear.
No, I assumed.
And it's like the first morning she like wakes up before Keanu Reeves does, and he goes downstairs and he's like, what's going on? How's everyone feeling? And they're like, I'm feeling good. And the wife is like, I feel great. I think I'm going to go for a run. And Keanu Reeves is like, okay.
Be careful.
Yeah. Be careful out there. And she's like, okay. And she goes out for a run. And then like while she's running, she like stops and she like clutches at her chest. And you're like, oh no, she's got some kind of problem with her heart or something weird's happening. And then she makes like this weird noise and you're like, oh, is she turning evil? Is that what's happening? Like, did something go wrong and now her brain is shorting out?
But she was stung by a bee.
Well, I think what is happening is that she's remembering getting stabbed in the chest by the tree. Because she kind of clutches at that area, but it's not clear because the very next scene, she just comes back to the house and she's like, hey guys, how's it going? I'm done my run. But like when she like stops to clutch her chest, she's like a zombie almost. And you're like, oh, this is taking a weird turn. And then it doesn't take the turn. It doesn't.
Is it possible that it's just like her lungs aren't used to breathing while running yet?
That's a good point. Maybe. And then the kids have like the son has some sort of like developmental problems where like he keeps missing his plate. Like first of all, that's like the first morning that they're awake and the kids are starving, which is understandable because they've never eaten anything. Like their stomachs and their intestines are probably just empty. And they're like pancakes and French toast and cereal. But the kid is like trying to pour his cereal into his bowl and misses and pours it into his cup. It's like
idiot.
Yeah. And that happens like a couple of times. And each time I found it hilarious. Like at one point they're like eating dinner and the kid goes to take a scoop of mashed potatoes and rather than putting it on his plate, he puts them into his cup. And you're like, you just ruined a glass of milk. Yeah.
Well, he doesn't know. He could just drink the potato milk.
Right. Yeah.
Like, well, I haven't eaten anything before, so why not?
Yeah. But, I definitely wouldn't say that this was a bad movie. It's not a great movie. It's probably not a good movie, but it's not terrible.
I'm surprised it's from 2018. When you said that, I was like, wait, I was expecting you to say like 1997 or something.
At one point, there's a robot that walks around, and I never saw the movie I, Robot, but all I could think is that this robot looks terrible compared to that I, Robot.
Those robots look like shit.
Yeah. All right, so that's all I got to say.
For what it's worth, iRobot's probably worth a watch to you. It's not great, but it's entertaining enough.
Yeah, maybe I'll check that out sometime.
Well, you should watch Upgrade first.
Okay.
I keep running across reviews of Upgrade and people mentioning it in podcasts and stuff. I just keep remembering it more and more fondly. And it's always positive stuff. It's kind of like a sleeper hit sort of thing. Yeah, you should get around to that.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right, so that brings us to our movie rankings list.
Got to rank this.
And so, Matt, where would you put John Wick Chapter 2?
I don't know yet. Why don't you come back to me? I'll pass for now.
Okay, I'll do my movies. Let's see. Nick's movie ranking list. And I saw The Martian, which I am going to put into the new number. Man, I put Gravity really high. I think I'm going to put this movie into right above Gravity in the new number 4 spot. And I'm going to give this movie 4.5 stars. It gets a little hokey towards the end, which is what prevents it from being a full 5-star movie. But, you know, it's pretty good. So, and it's a definite recommend. And then I watched the movie Replicas, which we just talked about. And I'm going to put this movie, let's see. I'm going to put this movie above, Jesus. Where do I want to put this movie? Was it better than the Christmas Chronicles? No, it wasn't better than the Christmas Chronicles. I am not watching that movie. And I'm going to say that this movie gets 2 stars. 2 stars. And I would recommend checking it out. It was pretty fun. So, yeah. There you go. And if I didn't say it, Replicas is now in the number 47 slot. 47 of 63. Matt.
Yep.
You watched John Wick Chapter 2.
Yeah, and I was struggling with this here, looking at my list, and I almost put it in between Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You, but I'm actually going to put it just beneath that, in between Happy Death Day to You and Bumblebee.
Oh, into the number 10 slot.
Yes. And I will give... Can we do quarter stars, or is it just half?
Halves.
I would give it 3.25, but I'm going to go ahead and give it 3.5 stars.
3.5 stars. All right.
For fun.
And I'm guessing that would be a recommend?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Great. Okay. I guess that's going to do it for the show this week. Matt, anything to plug?
I feel like there was something, but I'm blanking right now. So, nope.
Okay. And listeners, I created a new page on our website, thisweekinfilm.com, called Midwest Matt Recommends. And that's where I'm going to put all of the exciting things that Matt decides to plug.
Oh, well, you know what then? I will throw something out there. Since it's not on there yet, because you did it recently, I will remind everybody to check out the podcast Red Handed. It's awesome.
Okay. Yeah, so if you go to the Midwest Matt Recommends page, you'll find a hyperlink to the various things that Matt has recommended. If you want to know anything else about the show, check out thisweekinfilm.com. You can find it there. And if you go to the website, check it out. Tell us what you think. Is there stuff there you wish was there? Does the site look like you would want it to? You know, let us know. Otherwise, Matt, if that's the end of the reel, we'll see you next week in film.
Nick, I'll see you then.